In the pre-dawn hours of February 24, 2022, a day that would forever alter the course of European history, the first signs of an impending catastrophe began to emerge. The world held its breath, unaware of the scale of the events about to unfold. Russian President Vladimir Putin, in a televised address filled with historical distortions and unfounded accusations, chillingly announced a special military operation against Ukraine. His words, broadcast across the globe, signaled the end of peace and the beginning of a brutal conflict. The implications of this declaration were immediately clear. War had returned to Europe. Almost immediately, explosions erupted across Ukrainian cities. Kyiv, the heart of Ukraine, Kharkiv, a major industrial center, Odessa, a vital port city on the Black Sea, became targets in a coordinated and devastating assault. This marked the beginning of the largest war in Europe since World War II, a conflict that would redraw geopolitical lines and test the resolve of nations. The scale of the invasion was unprecedented, shattering the fragile peace that had existed for decades. Russian forces invaded from multiple directions, a multi-pronged offensive pushing deep into Ukrainian territory. Columns of tanks, armored vehicles and troops poured across the borders, aiming for a swift takeover of the country and the installation of a pro-Russian regime in Kyiv. The initial strategy appeared to be a blitzkrieg, a rapid and overwhelming assault designed to quickly cripple Ukraine's defenses. The world watched in shock and disbelief, glued to their screens as the invasion unfolded in real time. Many analysts and observers initially expected Ukraine to fall within days, overwhelmed by the sheer size and power of the Russian military. The predictions were grim, painting a picture of a swift and decisive Russian victory. But instead of collapse and capitulation, Ukrainians rallied with extraordinary courage and determination. Civilians and soldiers alike, united in their resolve to defend their homeland against the aggressor, mounting fierce resistance that defied expectations and inspired the world. The invasion shattered Europe's post-Cold War order, destabilizing the continent and forcing a reassessment of security alliances and defense strategies. It openly defied international law, challenging the principles of sovereignty and territorial integrity that underpin the global order. For Ukrainians, it was no longer just a political conflict, it was a fight for survival, a struggle to protect their families and their homes. It was a battle to preserve their identity, their culture, and the fundamental right to choose their own future, free from external interference. Air raid sirens wailed incessantly, a constant reminder of the imminent danger as families sought refuge in bomb shelters and subway stations, desperately seeking safety from the relentless bombardment. But amidst the chaos and destruction, a powerful sense of unity and resilience emerged, binding the Ukrainian people together in the face of adversity. Ordinary people, with no prior military experience, bravely took up arms, joining the ranks of the territorial defense forces to protect their communities. They were determined to defend their homes, their streets and their cities from the invading forces, transforming into a nation of citizen soldiers. The world soon realized that this was not going to be a quick Russian victory, as the Ukrainian resistance proved far more resilient and determined than initially anticipated. It was a nation's battle for its very existence, a fight for freedom and self-determination that would capture the world's attention and inspire countless acts of solidarity. To truly understand the depths of the current conflict, we must journey back to 1991, a pivotal year that reshaped the geopolitical landscape of Eastern Europe and the world. It was the year of the Soviet Union's dramatic collapse, an event that reverberated across nations and continues to influence international relations today. The dissolution of this once mighty empire paved the way for the emergence of independent states, each charting its own course in a new era. Among these newly sovereign nations was Ukraine, which declared its independence with a resounding affirmation of its national identity and aspirations. The declaration was followed by a nationwide referendum, where an overwhelming majority, over 90% of its people, cast their votes in favor of self-determination. This included citizens residing in regions like Crimea and Donbas, demonstrating a unified desire for sovereignty across the diverse territories of Ukraine. The referendum served as a powerful testament to the Ukrainian people's commitment to building their own nation, free from external control. In the aftermath, Russia formally recognized Ukraine's newly established borders, seemingly acknowledging its sovereignty on the international stage. However, beneath the surface of diplomatic formalities, a sense of resentment lingered within certain circles in Moscow, where the loss of Ukraine was never truly accepted. As Ukraine embarked on its independent journey, It found itself caught in a complex web of geopolitical forces, torn between the enduring influence of Russia, its historical neighbor, and the alluring pull of the democratic West with its promises of economic integration and political alignment. This delicate balancing act fueled internal political divisions, creating fault lines within Ukrainian society. The eastern regions of Ukraine, with their historical ties and cultural affinities, tended to lean towards Moscow, while the western regions, embracing European values and aspirations, gravitated towards closer integration with Europe. Throughout the years, a series of uprisings such as the 2004 Orange Revolution and the 2014 Revolution of Dignity, also known as the Euromaidan Revolution, served as powerful expressions of the Ukrainian people's desire to reject pro-Russian leaders and combat corruption, paving the way for a more democratic and accountable government. The 2014 revolution, which led to the ousting of President Viktor Yanukovych, represented a decisive turning point, signaling Ukraine's firm commitment to aligning itself with Europe and its values. However, this move was perceived by Russia as a Western-backed coup, an attempt to undermine its influence in the region. Fueling this perception was President Vladimir Putin's vision of a Russian world, a concept that, in essence, denied Ukraine's legitimacy as a separate and independent nation with its own distinct identity and culture. This fundamental clash between competing ideologies, the principle of national sovereignty versus the ambition of imperial restoration, ultimately set the stage for the direct military conflict that would engulf Ukraine and reshape the global order. In this context, Ukraine's struggle transcends mere territorial disputes. It has become a profound battle over its very identity, its right to self-determination, and its vision for the future. Russia's response to Ukraine's 2014 revolution was swift. Russian special forces seized Crimea, staging a sham referendum and annexing the peninsula in violation of international law. In Donbas, Russian-backed separatists declared breakaway republics, sparking a war that killed over 14,000 and displaced millions. Moscow denied involvement, but evidence showed direct Russian support. The Minsk peace agreements failed, leaving a frozen conflict that kept Ukraine weak and divided. For 8 years, the Donbas War hardened Ukraine's army and national resolve. The unresolved status of Crimea and Donbas left a permanent state of tension. In 2022, Russia escalated, turning a regional conflict into a full-scale war. Putin justified the invasion with claims of demilitarizing and denazifying Ukraine, painting its government as a neo-Nazi threat. These accusations were widely dismissed as propaganda, especially given President Zelensky's Jewish heritage. The Kremlin also cited NATO's expansion as an existential threat, demanding Ukraine's permanent neutrality. Russia claimed to protect Russian speakers in Ukraine, framing the war as a humanitarian intervention. In reality, millions of Russian-speaking Ukrainians opposed the invasion and suffered most from Russian attacks. The world saw these justifications as a smokescreen for a war of aggression. Many analysts argue the true motive is Russia's desire to restore its imperial power. Putin views Ukraine's independence as a historical injustice and denies its right to exist as a sovereign nation. The invasion aims to erase Ukrainian statehood and reassert Moscow's dominance. This is a direct challenge to the post-Cold War order, signaling that Russia will use force to control its neighbors. A successful democratic Ukraine threatens Putin's regime by offering Russians an alternative model. The war is as much about Russia's internal survival as its external ambitions. Russia's initial blitzkrieg failed. Ukrainian resistance forced a Russian retreat from Kyiv and the north. The war shifted to the east and south, becoming a brutal battle of attrition. Ukraine's counter-offensives in Kharkiv and Kherson stunned the world, reclaiming key territories. Since then, the front lines have hardened into a grinding stalemate, with both sides suffering heavy losses for minimal gains. As of mid-2025, Russia controls about 20% of Ukraine, including Crimea. Drones and long-range strikes have transformed the battlefield, targeting infrastructure and supply lines. Both sides endure relentless attacks with no clear end in sight. The war has become a test of endurance, technology, and willpower. By mid-2025, the war's human toll is staggering, a grim testament to the brutal realities of modern conflict. The sheer scale of suffering is almost incomprehensible, impacting every facet of life in both Ukraine and Russia. We're not just talking about numbers. We're talking about lives irrevocably altered, families torn apart, and futures stolen. The cost in lives is immense, with nearly 1.4 million military casualties recorded. This represents a generation lost, young men and women who will never return home. Each cross in these cemeteries represents a story unfinished, a potential unrealized. Russia is suffering the highest losses since World War II, a stark indicator of the intensity and futility of the fighting. The battlefields are littered with the wreckage of war, a testament to the devastating power of modern weaponry and the human cost of strategic miscalculations. Ukraine has lost hundreds of thousands, their names etched on memorial walls, their faces a constant reminder of the sacrifices made to defend their homeland. These are not just soldiers. They are fathers, mothers, sons and daughters, each loss leaving an unfillable void. And the civilian deaths exceed 13,000 innocent lives caught in the crossfire, their stories often untold. Makeshift memorials of flowers and candles mark the spots where they fell, a poignant reminder of the human cost of war, though the real number is likely higher, lost in the chaos and destruction. The true extent of the civilian casualties may never be fully known, a haunting legacy of the conflict. Over 10 million Ukrainians have fled their homes, seeking safety and refuge from the relentless violence. They carry with them only what they can, their lives packed into suitcases, their hearts heavy with uncertainty. This has created a massive refugee crisis, straining resources and testing the compassion of neighboring countries. Makeshift camps have sprung up, offering temporary shelter but little comfort to those displaced by the war. Cities lie in ruins, once vibrant centers of commerce and culture, now reduced to rubble and ghost towns. The landscape is scarred, a permanent reminder of the devastation wrought by the conflict. And Ukraine's economy is shattered, its infrastructure decimated, its industries crippled. The road to recovery will be long and arduous, requiring massive investment and unwavering commitment. Surviving only with Western aid, a lifeline that sustains the nation but also highlights its vulnerability. The flow of humanitarian assistance is crucial, providing food, medicine, and shelter to those in need. Russia faces mounting costs, economic sanctions, international isolation, and the depletion of its resources. The impact is felt across the country, from empty shelves in stores to closed businesses on the streets. Lost fuel capacity and sanctions are crippling its energy sector, a vital source of revenue for the Russian government. The damage to infrastructure is significant, disrupting supply chains and hindering economic activity. And a brain drain of skilled citizens is further weakening its long-term prospects. The exodus of talented individuals is a significant blow to the Russian economy, depriving it of the expertise and innovation needed to thrive. Both nations are locked in a war economy, diverting resources from essential services to military production. This unsustainable model is sacrificing the well-being of their citizens for the sake of a conflict with no clear end in sight. Reliant on external support and mass mobilization, they are caught in a cycle of violence and dependence. The constant need for new recruits and external funding perpetuates the conflict, making it difficult to break free. Ukraine depends on Western weapons and funding, a lifeline that allows it to resist the Russian aggression. But this dependence also raises questions about its long-term sovereignty and its ability to chart its own course. Russia drafts new soldiers and ramps up arms production, fueling the conflict and perpetuating the cycle of violence. The relentless pursuit of military superiority comes at a tremendous cost, both in terms of human lives and economic resources. The war is a devastating drain on both societies, depleting their resources, eroding their social fabric, and undermining their future prospects. The long-term consequences of the conflict will be felt for generations to come, mortgaging their futures, sacrificing the well-being of their children for the sake of a war that offers no clear path to victory. The psychological toll on the younger generation will be immense, shaping their lives in profound and lasting ways. Every statistic hides a story, a personal tragedy, a tale of resilience in the face of unimaginable hardship. Behind the numbers are real people with hopes, dreams, and families whose lives have been forever changed by the war. Of loss, resilience, and survival, a testament to the enduring human spirit in the face of adversity. The Ukrainian flag waving amidst the damaged buildings is a symbol of hope, perseverance, and the unwavering determination to rebuild and recover. Russia's invasion reshaped global security, revitalizing NATO and ending decades of European complacency. Finland and Sweden joined NATO, and Europe ramped up defense spending, recognizing the fragility of peace. The war disrupted global food and energy supplies, causing price spikes and hardship worldwide. It deepened geopolitical divides, with China and Iran backing Russia, while the West united behind Ukraine. Russia frames the conflict as a fight against the West, transforming itself into a garrison state. The war is a proving ground for modern warfare, drones, cyber attacks, and new tactics. The world is now more polarized, with rising tensions between democracies and autocracies. The conflict in Ukraine is no longer just about Ukraine. It's a central front in a global struggle over power and rules. The outcome will shape the international order for years to come. As the war drags into its fourth year, peace remains elusive. Ukraine fights for survival, sovereignty, and its 1991 borders. Russia seeks to subjugate and divide. Most Ukrainians reject any peace that cedes territory, fearing future aggression. Russia bets on Western fatigue and a war of attrition to wear Ukraine down. Both societies are weary, but compromise seems impossible. Ukraine demands full withdrawal. Russia refuses to relinquish annexed lands. Any lasting peace will require robust security guarantees for Ukraine, likely involving NATO or similar alliances. True peace demands a shift in Moscow's worldview and international commitment to Ukraine's reconstruction and security. The war is a defining conflict between law and force, sovereignty and subjugation. Its outcome will determine not just Ukraine's fate but the future of global security.